shifting as the demand for telecom products and services is increasing exponentially. To understand more on this, let us please welcome Mr. Sanjay Mashruwala, MD Reliance Jio, to address the audience.
Hello. Only thing that does not change is change itself. This is absolutely true for technology and obviously for all activities that use technology. As technologies change and evolve, so should priorities and strategies. History is full of examples where businesses and leaders fail to appreciate change and fail to adapt and evolve their strategies, so miss real opportunities. Telecommunication is a prime example of continuous change and evolution. From its origin of being voice-centric to powering almost 5 billion internet connections today. And sure enough, the priorities of telecom business itself has changed and evolved as well. Once upon a time, strategy of being able to arrange a phone connection to one and all was the top priority. This had to wait for mobile technology, but then priorities shifted and the emphasis was on greater coverage, more affordable tariffs, better quality of service. Today in India, everybody has voice and high-speed data services at an affordable price. Jio 4G is available to over 99% of India's population. So now, the focus has shifted from accessibility to next generation technologies that enable new digital services leveraging high-speed, low-latency data, specifically 5G. The pandemic has highlighted the need for fully accessible ultra-high-speed connectivity. Connectivity that can deliver remote health, distance learning, and anywhere, anytime governance and civil services, and to continue to connect people to people wherever they are. 5G is being marketed as a solution for all this. But what is 5G? What should be our strategy for deciding the priorities in the days to come? Is 5G just about higher speed and lower latency? Is it simply about spectrum, massive MIMO, fiber backhaul, SA and NSA core networks? Is 5G just a network evolution beyond LTE, or is it something different? Going back just a few years, a wide variety of internet services like streaming audio and video, social media, video sharing were already available. But the user base was somewhat limited, particularly in the days of 3G. The majority of telecom subscribers could not avail of these services because of high tariffs, inadequate coverage, lack of local content, and even shortage of devices. So the strategy was to eliminate these limitations and introduced 4G. Today the impact of Jio has assured that for India, mobile internet-based services are commonplace and available to most at affordable rates. Now a new challenge exists for the deployment and effective use of 5G. Coverage, tariff, spectrum, affordable devices are obviously necessary. But the real value of 5G is in its inherent capabilities, the digital services and platform it enables. Up until now, the platform and services developed by Western tech companies were also quite appropriate and useful for India. Little needed to be changed, except perhaps language and alphabet. Will the same be true for 5G? Many of the applications and platforms being developed for 5G today are still being developed in the West and keeping Western society, lifestyle and users in mind. However, as we look to apply these use cases in India, there are certain fundamental differences that must be considered. That is where appropriate strategy becomes very relevant. For example, 5G is a fundamental tool for autonomous driving. Behind the scene, the AI engine powers the decision making, building and adapting route maps, ingesting and understanding road signs, adhering to traffic rules, reacting to traffic tendencies, and so on. While the connectivity demands remain the same, whether it is in US, the UK or India, the actual driving conditions are markedly different. And for autonomous driving to be successful, a lot more has to change. Standardized traffic signs and markings, appropriate road conditions, and so on. And of course, economics of transportation being so different, Indian model will have to evolve very differently. Agriculture is another industry in which 5G can provide access to advanced tools and applications, but those must be adapted to India's specific policies, climate, logistics, and economic norms. Contrary to the West, our agriculture practices are very different. This demands tailor-made solutions for predictive modeling for demand, for managing supply and distribution, so as to minimize waste and maximize returns. Just as important are platforms and tools that understand and analyze the unique climate, soil, disease patterns to ensure that farmers are able to maximize their yields in the most effective manner. The pandemic has also heightened and highlighted the need for a more accessible and flexible healthcare system. 5G provides an excellent foundation for virtual care and telemedicine. Local inputs from Indian practitioners and health networks will shape these tools and platforms to meet the needs of India as telecom, tech and health must partner to develop use cases that are applicable for us across India, especially rural India. Many of our students have only just returned to classrooms over a year and a half after COVID shutdown of the schools. This disruption of learning was only somewhat tempered by technology, as many students and schools lacked the tools and connectivity to support remote learning. Technology will deliver remote learning to mobile devices or local village learning centers, from traditional textbooks to augmented 2D and 3D video and hands-on learning through AR and VR. It is up to India's education and training experts to fill in the gap with content supported by our own developers and platforms. This is very strategic for us since this builds the foundation for the young India. One other area to note is the focus on clean energy. With small format, low cost options for IoT sensors with real-time 5G connectivity, a new level of intelligence can be built into our energy grid. Smart energy management can optimize use and consumption, even more effectively manage production-based AI-driven usage and predictive modeling of data. Deployed in conjunction with IoT, automation, robotics, and other new generation technologies, 5G can also accelerate Make in India. Virtual digital twins, AR, VR, and AI-driven simulations can allow a host of experimental and innovative ways to create new designs and products rapidly and efficiently. As we continue to cultivate our indigenous technologies and products, focus must extend beyond the telecom industry. 5G's true opportunity is beyond the feeds, speeds, and latency. 5G is foundation for digitization of all aspects of industry and economy, building a strong and more advanced India. Atmanirbhar Bharat. With this 5G as foundation, we must strategize and prioritize, encourage and grow appropriate platforms and technology that is relevant to India. Thank you.
Thank you, Mashruwala ji. It was inspiring to know the operator's roadmap. Well, there won't be a better person than the next speaker, Mr. Ravinder Takkar, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Vodafone Idea, to guide us on this.
Good morning to all my colleagues and friends from the industry who have joined us today at the India Mobile Congress 2021. This conference is aptly themed Connectivity for the Next Decade, because today we are building the future, a future with not just connected people, but also connected machines. And this can happen only on the back of solid digital infrastructure and connectivity. This decade will witness rapid technology advancements, and India will play a crucial role in driving the global digital economy. Our commitment and focus on developing deep digital connectivity will enable India to achieve its goal of being a $5 trillion economy with a $1 trillion digital economy within this decade. As new usage trends emerge out of the technological strides, Vi has adapted itself to becoming future fit for the digital era. The future that we envisage would not be possible without prudent and enabling policies. So to start with, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Government of India and Department of Telecom for ushering the new era of telecom reforms announced in September this year. These bold and path-breaking structural, procedural, and financial reforms are steps in the direction of unshackling the telecom sector and start addressing financial stress and legacy issues in the sector. The government has indicated its intent to spur investments while enabling competition and consumer choice. Further, they are aimed at promoting ease of doing business and enabling smooth business operations with faster delivery of services to customers. Looking at the decade ahead, there is a need to make the industry sustainable in the long term, thereby effectively supporting the digital needs of 1.3 billion Indians and millions of small, medium, and large enterprises. Towards this future, a few more steps taken quickly will achieve this goal. Industry players are talking about, first, making adequate spectrum available at reasonable prices and easy payment terms. Second, rationalizing taxes and levies in line with the recommendation of NDCP 2018. And third, reducing the heavy burden of old legacy litigation in the sector. Once this is out of the way, it would be upon us, the industry players, to bring about ARPU improvement from the currently abysmally low levels. Initial steps have been taken to correct this, but more needs to be done to provide quality service offering to customers. For us at Vodafone Idea, having covered over 1 billion Indians on 4G, Vi's commitment to further boost our 4G coverage and capacity and provide deeper rural connect is further strengthened. Our focus is now to enable 400 to 500 million digitally unconnected Indians to connect to the digital world. We realize that even with the accelerated digitalization over the last 2 years due to the pandemic, we are still a country with just about 50% penetration of smartphones. Yet we are the largest data consumer in the world. So while a lot has been done, still much more needs to be done. Vi's relentless effort to drive digital adoption in India by getting 2G users to upgrade to 4G with our range of offerings and partnerships continue. The growing need of customers for digital services in areas like healthcare and fitness, education and skilling, entertainment, and many other genres are being catered through Vi's partnership with domain leaders. We continue to invest in our network to provide better quality experience. Vi has consistently led the league tables of both data and voice ranking for over a year now. Vi was awarded India's fastest mobile network by Ookla. We remain the highest rated quality service provider in the country as per TRAI reports. Looking ahead, we see that India is on the cusp of 5G. 5G trials are an important precursor to ensure successful and effective 5G rollouts. Our focus on leveraging new technologies and partnerships for a better future for Vi users has led us to become the first telco in India to develop a wide range of 5G use cases for enabling smart cities, smart infrastructure, smart auto, smart sports training, remote healthcare, connected schools, drone-based surveillance, gaming, and many other. These were demonstrated during our 5G trials in Pune and Gandhinagar. Many of these applications can be scaled up to catalyze the adoption of Industry 4.0 and make our enterprise and citizens smarter. As we prepare for 5G for a better tomorrow, we have the advantage of leveraging Vodafone Group's expertise and best practices from having rolled out 5G in many global markets. We have embraced cloud for our core network gear for 5G services. We continue to methodically upgrade our transport and radio networks to cater for the huge traffic demands that will arise out of millions of connected devices on 5G in the future. While the industry readies for 5G, we have to be mindful of the fact that investments to the tune of US $60 to 70 billion are required for the implementation of 5G in India, as per the TRAI. Therefore, as I mentioned earlier, issues related to spectrum availability, significantly lower pricing, and easy payment terms need to address on a priority basis. Access to adequate cost and cost-efficient spectrum would be critical for making necessary network investments in 5G rollout in the country. 5G will be driven by technologies such as IoT, AI, machine-to-machine based on cloud-based networks. IoT, as we know, is a key enabler for digital acceleration for enterprises. To realize value from IoT, the current fragmented value chain needs an ecosystem orchestrator to help enterprises navigate IoT adoption. We embarked on this journey of telco to techco with our integrated IoT and end-to-end IoT solution offering. This industry-first solution from Vi simplifies IoT adoption in energy and utilities, automotive, and infrastructure sector. Cloud is an emerging technology and opportunity with more workloads distributed across hyperscalers. Integrated multi-cloud platform enabling public, private, and edge cloud services would be central going forward. As a techco, we are expanding our portfolio from service as a service provider to infra as a service through partnerships. The rollout of newer technologies facilitating massive connectivity, IoT, and machine-to-machine require ecosystem players, regulators, and policymakers to work together for ensuring secure frameworks and data. Collaboration on cybersecurity is a must across India and potentially globally to prepare better and share best practices. It cannot be done at operator level alone, but requires lateral working on shared and open platforms. In the end, I would say this decade will be a threshold year for connectivity in India. The telecom sector is one of the prime movers of the economy and a sector of sectors. The new technologies that we usher in today and develop for tomorrow should cater to the larger goals of economic growth and service to the society. We need to measure its impact by its socio-economic development. And on that point, very few can measure up to what this sector has done to India by bringing into the league of global superpowers. And now, to give you a glimpse of what 5G holds for a better tomorrow, here's a short video from Vi. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for participating at this forum. Wishing you a great new year ahead.
Ravinder Takkar. It is always enlightening to hear from you, sir. Well, now I take this opportunity to invite Mr. Ajay Puri, COO Airtel, to share his thoughts.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Airtel, I welcome you all to the IMC 2021. These are unprecedented times. The sheer resilience and service attitude of people of India, the proactive response by Government of India and the state governments, and the role the telecom industry has played during this period have been the three most defining inputs that have shaped the outcome. The COVID 19 has had a profound impact on the health and livelihood of individuals, communities, and economies around the world. In these trying times, connectivity on mobile and wireline networks has emerged as a lifeline for society, and these digital highways have helped near normal life to continue despite all kinds of physical restrictions. With the digital economy set to be at the heart of a post COVID 19 world, the urgency to bring unconnected communities online has never been greater. Timely access to the life saving information and services such as health, education for otherwise underprivileged population, enhance productivity and efficiency through 5G and IoT enabled digital transformation of industries, and new opportunities and market access for small scale businesses and enterprises will be ever crucial. As per GSMA in 2020, mobile technology and services generated a $4.4 trillion of economic value addition, almost 5% of the GDP globally. 5G will further benefit all sectors of the global economy in the coming years, with services and manufacturing the most impacted and benefited. India has been one of the fastest growing mobile broadband markets. The 4G is now available to almost 99% population, and consumers have having some of the lowest prices for mobile services in the world. This is positively impacting the GDP of India. The government's vision of 1 trillion digital economy and digital India rests solely on the shoulders of telecom industry. The telecom industry is driven by multiple factors, mainly the technology evolution, consumer experiences and expectations, policies and regulations, and sovereign security considerations. Let me contextualize some of these. On consumer side, connectivity and OTT content is a big driver. It is also impacting the network capacities in a big way, thereby creating need for greater investments by the telecom companies. The digital innovations and applications are disrupting the existing ways of doing things, driving need to reinvent business models, products, services. Wireless, wireline, and now satellite are set to complement each other. In fact, satellite will be a great complement to bring high-speed data services in remotest part of so hitherto not connected rural markets. The government too is a change agent, not just on policies and regulations, but innovations such as Aadhaar, UPI, CoWIN are the examples of large game-changing initiatives enabling ease of conducting day-to-day life. Security considerations of national telecom networks is also driving diversity in supply chain, e.g., open RAN, data protection, and privacy. These dynamics are influencing and impacting telecom companies multiple fronts because of them being investments and regulations. The need for heavy investments in telecom network is only growing with each new generation of technology, and Airtel has been at the forefront of leading in this journey. Since 5G would deepen collaborations with industry, startups, content, India relevant use cases will be important to massify the use of 5G in the coming years. We are at the cusp of reaping benefits from AI, big data, IoT, cloud. All these will offer new opportunities and will also create new disruptions. Energy is another focus area. Energy costs are huge for telecom networks, and there is a growing focus on net zero and climate impact. As leading telecom operator, Airtel has taken lead on this and would like to complement government's vision of using solar using open access policies. As from our side, Airtel remains fit and future ready to embrace all the new avenues. Realizing the critical importance of the sector, the government has come out with a very strong support package. The recent bold and forward looking reforms that is simplifying the AGR definition, increasing the spectrum tenure, removal of SUC for future auctions, the option of moratorium, and simplifying the customer onboarding, such as eKYC process, will all help in creating robust and sustainable industry. Having said that, this is a reform journey that has well started, and we believe many more future fit reforms, such as reduction in regulatory levies, lower GST rates on the essential services, simple, easy, and cost effective ways of getting ROW permissions, will be all deliberated and positively considered in the coming quarters stroke years. Let me also thank COI and its office bearers for their 25 years of services to our industry. The India Mobile Congress is becoming a premier tech event in Asia now. In fact, the IMC 2021 is testimony to our industry's hosting the huge gathering, virtually riding on the critical connectivity. The theme of IMC, Connecting for the Next Decade, is an appropriate one, and we expect very meaningful debates and discussions on the future of connectivity and its role for the larger ecosystem. I am told that over 25,000 delegates and more than 3,000 CXOs will visit the event. I wish COI and IMC all the success for the event. I also want to thank DOT, our concerned ministry, for all their help and for co-sponsoring the IMC event. In the end, I would like to say that as an industry, we are just warming up and gearing up for our next phase of connecting people, devices, society, government, and businesses to making their lives more and more comfortable and meaningful. I also wish the organizers and participants all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ajay. May I now please invite Mr. Nunzio Mirtillo, Head of Market Area, Southeast Asia, Oceania, and India, Ericsson, to share his vision.
Good morning. It is my pleasure to be here today and join the ongoing conversations on digital transformations enabled by 5G. Digital transformation is a global engine of sustainable economic growth. High-performing and energy-efficient connectivity is a prerequisite for digital transformation. And it paves the way for revolutionary technologies on top of the network, for example, for green digital agendas to be realized, and it is also required to really obtain the full benefits of the digital inclusion. Technology like 5G can revolutionize sustainability and safety through smart use of energy, automated systems, and the use of virtual and augmented reality. According to Ericsson research, digital technology like 5G can transform the industry sectors and enable a reduction of global carbon emission by up to 15% by 2030. In few years, quite a big gain. And here I would like to share one example from Ericsson. We are aware that when it comes to the networks of our service providers, the radio part is the one consuming most of the energy. And so we are continuously evolving our roadmap and obviously also looking at how to provide more capacity while consuming less energy. If we take our radio portfolio in 2022 and we compare with 2016 portfolio, then we can see and experience a saving reduction on the energy consumed of up to 35%. And we will continue to innovate, obviously, and that's part of why in the future we will continue to double down on our R&D. Sustainability will play a big role. We are also committing ourselves as a company that by 2030 we will become a carbon neutral company when it comes to our own operation. And obviously we will continue, as I said before, to invest so that we can contribute to the sustainability target of our customers. New technologies are accelerating, like AI, IoT, cloud, edge. And as an industry, I think we need to foster the development and deployment of these new digital technologies obviously also by sharing use cases across markets. For example, we are bringing our global deployment experiences from other markets to India, but also from India to other markets, because it's a lot that we together learn in India and we do in India that is applicable in the rest of the world. Ericsson, so far we have deployed more than 100 5G live networks, and obviously one aspect is technology, and we continuously improve it. But the other aspect is to learn about the new use cases when it comes to consumer and enterprise. And obviously we try to share these use cases used in other countries with our partners in India, but also simultaneously studying use cases that are specific, we believe, for the India country. But given that by 2030, we forecast that 2/3 of the world's workforces will depend on 5G connectivity. So it is paramount for India that we work towards closing the digital skills divide. I mean, overcome digital exclusion and make sure that digitalization is an opportunity for all. And this is extremely important for India, that is so successful in with exporting competence and leaders and workforce from India to other countries, and also working and making it in India directly. From AI to robotics to app development, I mean, all this is kind of changing very rapidly. And we believe also that the academic institution will require support from the ICT industry to take the digital learning beyond a basic level. And obviously also public and private partnerships will have a key role to play here. The average traffic per smartphone in India, we know that it's the second highest globally, and is projected to grow up to 50 gigabit per month in 2027. That is big. And so there is a need for a more efficient technology like 5G to manage such a big demand, and also to support new use cases, new features, and advanced services based on AR and VR. We expect over the next decade that networks to be a revolutionizing force for the industry and enterprises as well. We envision that limitless connectivity will redefine business and empower enterprises to become entirely agile. Enterprises will base their ways of working, their business much more going forward on mobile connectivity than it has never done so far. So with the full connected and constantly optimizing value chains, enterprises will work smarter and cleaner with production closer to the consumer, and so collapsing costs and emissions related to logistics and shipping. And obviously the industry is looking to the government to make available and affordable and adequate spectrum so that 5G can be launched in the country and India can realize the full benefit of 5G. I think India is doing so well on 4G, and I think it's great that will start next year, because 5G will be very mature, and the service providers will also leverage on a very competitive TCO. Looking forward, together, we will create the network that the future needs, an intelligent platform for innovation. As we saw in the case of 4G, I mean, the highest value and benefits came from the applications that mobile technology enables. But we did not foresee that value at the beginning when those applications were launched kind of 10 years back. But now we see it. We see it today that most value is captured by applications that run on 4G networks, such as e-commerce or social media and the music or video streaming. So we see 5G as a platform for innovation, and once the platform is there up and running, smart minds will innovate on the platform to generate new value. It is like when you create a new highway. Initially, kind of vacant, right? And then suddenly it gets busy, and then sometime and more often you have to queue. I mean, so that you wonder why additional 2 lanes had not been set up since the start. And with India set to introduce 5G, let's make sure we'll build enough number of lanes for everybody. And I think when when we do introduce 5G, it is starting with the technology that is already deployed, right? And so I think we can really accelerate and get most of the benefit since day one. So obviously we will, as Ericsson, contribute, to bring together partners across ecosystem to collaborate, innovate, and incubate ideas. We will evolve the ways in which we can expose network functions and capabilities in order to allow innovation to scale up. And we are forming also partnership with other vendors and critical technology players, such as hyperscalers and cloud providers, to ensure we fully explore and realize the full possibilities of limitless connectivity. So we think our technology enables so many societal changes to happen, and it can be climate action or access to education. We may not be the ones driving it ourselves, but together we are creating the platforms that make change possible. We invite you to be part of the journey and to make the imagine possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nunzio. Well, transformation is a very important driver in this new journey for the networks, and there is no one better than Red Hat driving it globally. To enlighten us on this journey, let us hear from Mr. Darrell Jordan-Smith, Senior Vice President, Global Accounts and Target Industries, Red Hat. Please welcome Mr. Darrell.
Hello, my name is Darrell Jordan-Smith. I'm the Senior Vice President here at Red Hat, responsible for our Global Accounts and Industries organization. It is an absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to present to you today and talk to you a little bit about what we're seeing in the marketplace today, specifically around 4-5G network innovations in the marketplace. So at India Mobile Congress, we're 2021, we're really going to be focusing from a Red Hat perspective and looking at the edge of the network. And that's really proliferated and actually been created because of the migration from legacy-based networks or 4G-based environments to a 5G Wi-Fi 6-based environments, where we're seeing a holistic and consistent migration to hybrid cloud solutions. And really what that actually means is that you can develop an application in one person's cloud or a private cloud, public cloud, and actually have them interact together in a consistent set of applications and services, all innovation being built upon the network infrastructure that delivers that high performance, low latency, mission critical, secure network implementation. So we're seeing that this is actually driving the next generation of use cases and examples in the market where significant amounts of innovation are occurring in India. And I'd like to refer to the manufacturing marketplace as just one of maybe 3 examples I'll have an opportunity to talk to you about today. What we're looking at from an industry perspective in manufacturing is using telemetry collected by cameras, by sensors, that are all created and deposited in real time in a data hub that enables manufacturing plants in different areas or the same area within a geographic region to create the next generation products and services, lowering its overall cost of production, reducing the ability to misjudge quality and or parts, and managing better logistics and other such things, which are particularly important also to our environment, really focusing on actually improving the customer experience through delivering a better product, as well as driving better and more comprehensive revenues as we redesign using 5G Wi-Fi 6 technologies, the plant or factory floor. And we're seeing this as a particularly an innovative area where we're seeing a lot of disruption using machine learning and artificial intelligence through the creation of new applications, which will be cloud native applications that reside in the cloud. And as I said, across multiple clouds in a hybrid based environment. So very exciting developments in terms of what we're seeing in the next generation factory floor. And as we go to a different example, leveraging common technologies in medicine, and looking at actually how we are actually delivering the next generation of medical care. And there are really 2 or 3 different areas here that are worth focusing on. The first one is the example that you see here, where we have high bandwidth, low latency content delivery from the scene of an accident, where a paramedic will actually provide initial service through the telemetry created from some of the devices, the biometric devices, the robotics that occur on the patient, as well as cameras that look at visual recognition software so the individuals can be identified, other biometrics can be collected, communicated back in terms of low latency, high performance network infrastructure through something at the edge of the network called mobile edge compute that can do initial AI and triage on a lot of that data that's going through the core network into the hospital or clinic itself. So as you're arriving in the hospital, the doctors and nurses that are going to be treating the particular patient have a great deal more knowledge on that individual. Saving time often saves lives in providing that interactive service, as well as actually reducing the overall cost of being able to do that, because they're able to put as much of that cost at the edge, where artificial intelligence and machine learning can do a lot of the analytics. So again, really changing the way that we receive medical care. Another example that could be a remote medical office where you're actually looking at x-rays, or you may be going for an MRI or a CT scan. Collecting that imagery, doing analytics on that imagery at the edge of the network within that facility, before actually transporting that data back to the core hospital, where you may have a particular specialist looking at that, but also having machine learning and AI through the mobile edge application environment, looking at actually analytics on that data so they can actually look and not miss cancers. They can not overlook particular data. They can match that to different data sets. So they can actually provide a lot of intelligence and a lot of information to the doctor or the practitioner as they're treating their patient. Again, improving the service, lowering the overall cost, as well as actually minimizing the amount of errors that potentially could take place in such an environment. So telehealth is a really interesting area where we're seeing a huge amounts of innovation and applications and services being developed. And again, in India, where there's a huge software developer community, a huge focus on actually creating value across the network infrastructure that delivers these next generation applications and services that sit in the cloud, that run on top of the networks that the service providers are actually delivering to customers in these areas, is particularly exciting and important to us here at Red Hat. Then going on to another example I like to use a lot, and that's around education and looking at open source and immersive education. So we're doing a lot of work with a non-profit venture called Karuki here in the United States, which are doing education from 5th, 6th grade all the way to 18, K1 through 12 as it's known here in the US. We're exporting a lot of this to Latin America and other regions in the world where they want to use open source technologies to share openly learning experiences, more immersive experiences for students. So they can not just look at a textbook, they can actually immerse themselves and get involved visually as well as contextually in the material and the subject matter that they're working on, to make it more interactive, more gripping, more holistic in terms of the way that their students want to interact with the content itself. And we're using open source technologies to do that. And the reason we're doing that is because we were working with many different communities that create different code that enable us to create those new applications and services that improve security, innovation, the freedom of individuals to interact with that content and retain that knowledge in an open source community. And at Red Hat, that's core to what we do. We believe that innovation sits elsewhere. Our job is to foster the communities through open source that drive that innovation. And in the telecommunications sense, from India, Mobile Congress sense, is creating an environment that exposes the important elements of a network-based infrastructure to disruption from outside, i.e. the ideas and concepts coming in using open source technology, we believe is a true differentiator for the market overall. And in general, we believe, and we've been able to show, that it improves the level of security. We see better quality software faster. We see increases in code quality in general and contributions. And India, with many, many millions of developers, is a thriving community and a very, very, very big part of what we see in open source technology. So with all of that and those examples that I've shown you, from the manufacturing plant floor through to healthcare, through to education, through to open source, all being built on open technologies that are facilitated using technologies in the telecommunication space around open radio access network, as an example, ORAN, deliver the next generation of services, which are particularly exciting to everyone here at India Mobile Congress 2021. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for their time and the opportunity to talk with you today, and I hope to be able to see you in person in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darrell. With a lot of new transformational solutions and companies making around in this ecosystem like STL, we may now invite Mr. Chris Rice, CEO, Access Solution Business, to share his thoughts.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Chris Rice, and I'm the CEO of STL Access Solutions. Pleasure to be here at India Mobile Congress at the CEO Conclave. I'm going to be giving a talk on the shifting priorities to adapt to emerging trends and tackle future challenges. I've got a background, besides my time here at STL, at AT&T, there for about 25 years, really kind of doing our fundamental shift into software-defined networking, which was a way that we actually adapted to trends and tackled future challenges. And so I'm here to talk about some of the things that I think are important in the industry today along those same lines. And so here's an agenda of my talk. I want to talk about what I believe will be called the new normal that we have to adapt to. I want to talk about the trends that we're seeing, both technology trends and market trends that we need to tackle for future challenges, and then what I believe the role of open networks are in making sure we can adapt to those trends and tackle the challenges facing the operators. And essentially the new normal is that the internet is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And this was known way back when we had President Obama here in the US, and there's just been an online boom kind of quite frankly ever since. And here are just some stats to back some of that up. About 15% of students today attend college online. I mean, you go back 5, 6, 7 years ago, that was much, much smaller than that. People now spend more time online than watching television. Again, just a tremendous idea of the impact of the applications and social media platforms that we're seeing. Almost everything in the world can be bought online now. You know, it's no longer just some of certain things, but cars, groceries, almost anything. And then now with AI and ML, this trend is even going to go further because there's going to be these try before you buy experiences, which today you can only get in stores. And governments are now considering regulation, or some have already regulated internet as a lifeline service, similar to what they did for phone service back many, many years ago. And I think if you were to go back, and as devastating as the impact of COVID has been around the world, without the telco broadband networks and the investment that the telcos put in, without the social media and video chat platforms, I think we realized it would have been significantly more devastating. And we just looked to those of the past that were devastating to see what it could have been like. And I think the future going forward is even going to drive this further, because there's use cases like autonomous driving that depend on almost completely ubiquitous low latency 5G, right, for their need to be deployed out. And that is going to drive larger, deeper network deployments. And so what are the trends or implications associated with this? Well, here's one. This actually comes from AT&T, and this is about their response during COVID, back in 2020. You can see from that March to June timeframe, that huge spike in daily IP traffic. That is a huge spike, right? This is measured in petabytes, right? And what they saw was 3 years of growth in 1 week, 20% surge traffic in 3 weeks, and an increase in voice traffic. And how are they able to respond to that? Because I can promise you, if you would go back 5, 6, 7, 8 years, responding to that kind of change would have just, been virtually impossible. Well, thanks to some of the investments they made in software-defined networks, they were able to do that. And I want to talk about why that's going to be even more important going forward for other carriers besides just AT&T. Well, back in 2016, the chart on the right basically shows that people consume in 2016 about equally between mobile and fixed desktop usage for internet. And again, go back to 2009, you can see that was like 100% almost desktop. It's even higher than that today for mobile usage. And so what's happening is mobile is becoming more and more and more the new normal for the way people not just get their voice, not just get their messaging, but obviously get their applications and their broadband, including work applications. And that kind of started back in, again, 2009, where you see that occurred 4G launching. And you can see the number of connections went up, IoT connections went up, revenue stayed relatively flat, ARPU actually went down. And so there's a question of how do you respond to this? Well, one would be, what can you do to increase revenue? Or what can you do to lower costs? And on the revenue side, what we're seeing is that's primarily shifting to the application side, the platforms that sit on top of the mobile network. And most of that comes to the customer in free or near free forms, where it's essentially monetized through advertising. Here's an example of Facebook, how they've monetized that. Some telcos have been successful in doing this, many have not. And so the real question is, what do you go and do? And the question is, well, you really need to work on the cost side of this equation, because the revenue side has not really proven to be very fruitful in terms of where the revenue is on the application side. And so you have to get more services out more quickly for less money, be able to respond like folks did in the COVID situation and have tremendous scaling needs. You need to understand that if people work from home, they literally have to work from home, and more what they do for their business is essentially online. So making sure those applications that are business applications perform at the home are more and more important. And we have to understand that 5G, especially for those future use cases, but even for some of the ones that are current, are going to require significantly more cell sites to provide ubiquitous coverage for the same geographies that 4G does today. And OpEx accounts for about 80% of the total cost of ownership. And this is why it's so important for these new technologies to optimize OpEx, because there's a 4-to-1 lever compared to the CapEx associated with this. And if you're going to go deploy more cells, you've got to have a way, even if you're going to keep your costs the same, of operating them more efficiently, right? Or your costs will grow. And then the last thing you got to realize is that these applications and people's experience on them have been formed since 2009 on fixed networks. So what they expect to see and want to see is performance like that on the mobile network. So that's another technology trend that's driving this even that much further ahead. So what do you do about this? Well, one of the things is look at the role of open networks and what the role that they can play in adapting to these trends and tackling these challenges. And what do we mean by this? Well, what we mean is that if you look at the systems of old, and quite frankly, even some today, they were very monolithic, very proprietary, closed interfaces, very vendor specific, expensive. And they were kind of, quite frankly, the way in the late 80s and early 90s computer systems were. And then there was a fundamental shift that occurred, right, the personal computer revolution, that opened that up, created open architectures, open interfaces, and it lowered the TCO. And that same kind of shift, that same fundamental shift is happening today in this space, both on the fiber side as well as on the wireless side. And we're seeing more and more industry adoption of this, more and more industry validation of this. And, you can take a look at, what's happening in Europe, what's happening in the Middle East, and where we have multiple operators all signing an MOU, memorandum of understanding, about what they need to see from some of these Open RAN or O-RAN networks. And that's driving this growth in the Open RAN space. And the reason that's important is that while the share of wallet today, if you look on the left, is relatively small for Open RAN, you see that in 2021 around 3%, you can see in the next 5 years that grows to 30%. And then quite frankly, in the next 9 years, that grows to almost 80%. So that's a tremendous amount of growth, because that's like a $60, $70 billion market. That's a tremendous amount of growth for Open RAN and O-RAN deployments going forward. And it's going to be that allows the operators to tackle some of these challenges that we're talking about that they face. And this is something that's not being led by any one particular company or actually in one particular set of companies. It's being led on open standards, in disaggregation and virtualization by, quite frankly, a very, very large ecosystem associated with it. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about the top middle area there, where you see that there's like the Linux Foundation, Telecom Infrastructure Project, ONAP, a bunch of others, O-RAN, Alliance, all working to make sure that the specifications, the interfaces, the APIs are all defined so that this can be as seamless as possible for telcos to adopt. And that's really important because it's not just the telcos, it's a vendor ecosystem, and importantly, the academia ecosystem that is a part of this, driving this to make it happen. And then I think the other question will be, well, what's government's role in this? And specifically, I want to talk about, well, what's India's government role in this? And they've already done a fair amount of this already. The government in India has done a lot of work around this PLI scheme to boost local manufacturing in telecom and networking products. You see that there's a large number of Wi-Fi hotspots, again, people getting their broadband through mobile, and then they're allowing more and more foreign direct investment in telecom services. So those are all very good things that are driving this forward. And you can see there are companies that are responding to that inside India itself. You see HCL launching a 5G interoperability lab. You see more and more people, STL, Airtel, Tata, and others in this made in India 5G O-RAN networks, right? And you can see that there are people like, again, STL working with Meta, formerly Facebook, on driving additional capabilities there for telcos worldwide. This is a global effort, right? And so this is something that India has a chance to be really a key part of going forward. But, you know, obviously there's always more that can happen. There's always more that can be done. And I think if you look at this, what you're going to say is, well, what more could government do? Well, this whole idea of certification interoperability is keenly important. You know, you've got to make sure that when these things are put in, it's a seamless transition for the telcos and the user experience associated with their customers. You have to have a set of policies to ensure that the security fabric of telecom networks is in place. That's of paramount importance. It's important for people. It's important for trust. It's important for national security. And then you also make sure that you realize that really no technology or product reaches global success without some kind of form of support from the government. So then the question is, well, are there other short-term and other long-term things that could be done? Well, yeah, certainly more labs, more people working on this, more things like PLI scheme, maybe applying the PLI scheme to research and development in addition to just delivery. And then obviously more spectrum, right? More spectrum for unlicensed and more spectrum for licensed area, because, you know, quite frankly, you need that to make sure that there's ubiquitous coverage in various areas, whether that's in mobile wireless or whether that's in Wi-Fi. And in the long term, you want to make sure that there's a level playing field associated with all organizations so that this can be a true ecosystem. Make sure that the policies are in place to improve workforce skills, to drive the talent that's required in this space for India to be a bigger part of it. And make sure that a central authority licensing across the country in terms of, you know, how that gets done and where it gets done, and nothing, you know, particular within one state or another, but something that's ubiquitous across India. And then I think the government in India should consider working with the telcos to have a similar MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, as was done in Europe and MEA. So those are some of the things that I think the government can do. But look, there are a lot of areas here that are driving new priorities for telcos. And there's these trends that have to be adopted, technology trends, there are customer trends. Those are facts, right? And then the question is, well, how do you adapt to those trends? And I think this idea of open networks, this idea of O-RAN, and this idea of things that are going on in the broadband forum and the fiber space is a way to do that, because not only will they attack the CapEx part of this, but more importantly, will attack the OpEx part of this, which is 4 to 5 times what the CapEx would be. In doing so, allows you to create a much broader ecosystem where third parties can be a part of it. And so you're not locked into any one particular ecosystem anymore. You open it up, and that competition drives down costs. So with that, I'll conclude my talk and thank everyone. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Chris. Well, in a short while, we would bring you a fireside chat between an industry veteran, Sanjay Malik, and our knowledge partner, KPMG, represented by Mr. Shobhit Agarwal. Over to you, Shobhit.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to IMC 2021. We have a fireside chat now, and the topic of our discussion is shifting priorities to adapt to emerging trends and tackling future challenges for CEOs. Let me introduce you to our CEO for this session, though he needs no introduction. We have Sanjay Malik. Sanjay is the head of India market responsible for Nokia Networks business operations in India. He also heads Nokia's country management team that is responsible for global operations such as manufacturing, R&D, and global delivery centers located in India. Since he took over in 2016, Sanjay has been instrumental in substantially growing and strengthening Nokia's business in India and making the company an undisputed leader in providing telecommunications infrastructure and services. Sanjay has a 3-decade-long global experience in telco and IT industry and joined Nokia in 2000 and has held various senior leadership, customer-facing, and global roles within the business groups. Sanjay's vision for Nokia's corporate community investment and his belief in the benefits of digital connectivity for social economic development has shaped the company's flagship CSR project in India, SmartPur, that aims to create 500 digitally integrated village ecosystem environment. So Sanjay, welcome to IMC 2021, and it's great to have you here, please.
Thank you very much, Shobhit, and it's my pleasure to be here with you.
Always to have a good fire chat with you because the kind of insights and objectives that you bring on the table, it's really great to hear. So I'll quickly dive into the topic. I'll just do some opening remarks, and then we'll put you on the hot seat and request your insights on some of the questions that we may have.
That's what you always do, Shobhit.
Thank you. Thanks, Sanjay. So today's CEOs are facing new challenges pertaining to the uncertainty around uneven global recovery post-pandemic. We know that pandemic has really wreaked havoc, but had it not been for the TMT industry, it would have been a very difficult scenario. The priorities of CEOs across the globe and in India are shifting as demand for telecom products and services is increasing exponentially. Much awaited spectrum auctions to enable commercial 5G launch, adoption of open network architecture, digitalizing customer touchpoints, fiberization and infrastructure development, green telecom, the list is endless, are some of the key aspects that are expected to drive the decision of telecom sector CEOs in the coming future. This fireside chat session will delve into how the priorities of the telecom sector is evolving in order to meet the digital aspirations of Indian citizens while ensuring risks such as supply chain, cybersecurity, talent shortage, and others are mitigated. Let me dive into the question, Sanjay. The pandemic has clearly demonstrated how communications has played the role of critical infrastructure around the globe. In your view, the demand on infrastructure has increased so many exponentially. Do you think enough is being done to ensure connectivity is broad-based beyond the urban areas? If not, what should you be done to expand the connectivity coverage across the country?
Yeah, thanks, Shobhit. And I think that is one topic which is going around in everyone's mind in India. So definitely, pandemic drove the digitalization to a large extent. So whatever was supposed to be done over years actually got done in a matter of months. So whether it was the bandwidth, the capacity, the apps, the kind of the video calls and the virtual meetings which have started happening, maybe that would have taken a couple of years to get to the reality. But frankly speaking, that is kind of one particular thing which you and me see sitting in these conference rooms, right? Because that's our world these days. So for urban area, definitely there has been a big shift which has happened. But at the same time, we have about 65% population sitting in the rural area, right? And we got to really see whether the connectivity curve has moved up in that exponential manner in rural area or not. And my personal feeling, my company's feeling is that it has not. Yes, there has been some improvement which have happened, but really whether it has changed the lives of people, I think lot to be done, lots yet to be done. And that's where I would say in coming years, coming months, 5G will play a big role there. Because for the length and breadth of India, if you have to cover and provide the same quality of service what we have in urban, there is kind of There is capacity which is required on the edge, capacity which is required on the backhaul. Only then we would be able to provide that kind of services in rural area. And 5G, as I said, yeah, from capacity perspective, it will increase the capacity on the edge, but at the same time, then for the backhaul, it is quite important that we should not be talking only 5G radio and 5G RAN there, but from the backhaul, again, that capacity has to be enhanced because fiberization, for example, today is only about 30 to 30%, 30 to 33%. And without improving that, it would be difficult to get that kind of capacity and get that kind of bandwidth in the rural area. So all that put together, whether it is the 5G, whether it is the E-band usage, that only will make sure that we bring the rural area also to the same level of services as we see in urban areas today. So yet to be done.
Thanks, Sanjay. I think you brought out a lot of important while we keep talking about them, but I guess the granularity of what the real question is very important, and that needs to be solution. So, I that leads me to the next one. You've been always a very critical player in the ecosystem. How are you really preparing towards creating a future ready network that is relevant to in India in terms of both time, scale, and the cost? Because there's always been a big question mark. We can always deliver these networks, but can we deliver it within the cost so that it supports the kind of revenue generation we have in India per user?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's again very, very pertinent question, Shobhit, because yes, we can do all that. We can have all the technology to kind of cover India altogether, but can we do it at the cost which India demands? And along with that, some of these complexity questions also, because there are some legacy networks which are there. Again, the scale is quite large in India, so that has to be sorted out, and that's where I would say Nokia has taken a leadership position in kind of providing quite a few enablers which will help us in managing that complexity and providing at the cost levels which we want in India. So maybe I'll give you a couple of examples there. So one, for example, all the network elements which we have been supplying to the CSPs over last couple of years are all 5G ready. So it would require some kind of a upgrade to really make it 5G now. Second, some of the, again, maybe, sorry, I'm talking a little bit technology jargons here, but some of the kind of the new launches which we have done, for example, the AirScale based on the ReefShark system on chip. With that, again, the capacity upgrade happens up to 8x level, and it is again a simple kind of a upgrade, simple kind of a plugin which has to go into existing AirScale platform. And similarly on the E-band solutions and FP5 for the backhaul and all that. So what I'm trying to say is, and all these solutions, again, on one side, it is increasing the capacity, and on the other side, it is kind of reducing the cost because the energy consumption is multifold down, and at the same time, the weight, which again defines kind of contributes into the TCO, that also we have the industry leading lowest weight solution. So all that basically what it translates to is that the cost per bit when you move from 4G to 5G comes down drastically, and comes down drastically for an environment the way we have in India. And again, yeah, we just want, yes, there is a complexity of the network which is given, but at the same time we are trying to make it very simple for CEOs, CXOs, and CTOs, so that it's easier to manage for them rather than becoming more difficult to manage for management. So again, things like SON and things like some of the other network solutions will help in, again, making it much more manageable. So all these technology upgrades and lots happening there. I can go on and on that, but don't want to kind of bore you with those things. But lots going on to really look at India kind of environment and providing the solutions which are more customized, more specific to India.
Thanks, Sanjay. It's you can't belittle what you were saying by saying that you'll bore us. It's always very exciting to see and hear about innovation. And like you said, you're going to be using a little more of tech jargon. Technology cannot be separated. T is for technology, T is for telecom. So let me move on into something which I'll segue into. Given the enterprise deployments, it's becoming clearer that enterprises are going to be looking at multiple technologies, omni-partner scenarios, solution-oriented approach towards CSPs. How do you view the CSP's readiness in mastering some of these technologies like cloud, edge, AI, Wi-Fi 6, etc.? Because there is just a ballooning of solutions that are coming about, and it's very important for CSPs also to choose between them fairly properly and with a long-term strategy in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think first on this enterprise segment and the enterprise opportunity. So naturally, for CSPs and for people like us, even for the equipment manufacturer, we have to go beyond our typical consumer slash customer segment. So we have to also kind of enlarge that, and enterprise definitely seems to be a hot one. In one of the recent survey which I saw, 92% of the enterprises mentioned that they want to accelerate their IoT deployments, their Industry 4.0 deployments, and all the automation which they want much faster than what they were thinking earlier. So that's again music to our ears, music to the CSP ears also. But is it going to be easy? No, it is not going to be easy. And that's where I would say that with all this ballooning of technologies, with different things which are coming up, even CSPs also have to upgrade their offerings, upgrade their way of managing the customers in the same way. And frankly speaking, yeah, it's difficult. It would be difficult, not impossible, would be difficult for CSP to do everything on their own. And that's where I think this partnership approach will come into play. That if you have to manage the use cases and other things for the enterprise segment, then you have to have the right partnership with, let's say, application developers, application providers, SIs, to really make end-to-end offerings for the enterprise segment. And that's where enterprise also would like to look at one person to take care of all these end-to-end technology piece. And yeah, so that would be a little bit of a paradigm shift which will be there, and it has to be there in our approach with the enterprise for equipment manufacturer like us and for CSPs also. So people know about it. There are some of the global best in class kind of examples which are there. But yes, India has to start thinking about that and moving into that direction. I hope it answers your question.
No, you've actually got me thinking in so many different directions. Your one sentence is a compendium of lot of complexities, actually, Sanjay. So thank you for that. You said a very very important thing. Partnership is going to be extremely important, and it's not only about CSPs maturing. It's also about every person in the ecosystem or every entity in the ecosystem maturing as much, because in a network you're going to be as weak as your or you're weak as your weakest link. So every link has to fire, every link has to be as strong. So yeah, that's a very important element that you brought about. Thank you for that. And just moving on from there, in fact, when you said about the ecosystem and the partnership, today cloud and virtualization is with 5G applications, CSPs will require more and more embracing of cloud and virtualization, and that's going to provide them possibly more flexibility and scalability to manage the varied workloads. So, what, in your view, do you think, how ready really is the telecom sector in India, ready in that aspect? Because I think that's going to be a very, very important, KPI to tick and
Mhm.
make sure that 5G then gets proliferated.
Yeah. So normally this is what I say in most of my discussion, that people think that 5G is this 5G radio with the new spectrum which is going to be auctioned, and that's what 5G means. And what I say is that yeah, it is beyond that 5G radio or 5G kind of RAN as we call it. It's beyond that, and it's basically to talk about the virtualization, cloudification, which is again one important component of the whole 5G journey. It is the 5G backhaul, 5G front haul, and all that will make it happen. So there's one good news there for India, that from core virtualization perspective, where quite a bit of attention, quite a bit of money has been spent on core virtualization, India is ahead of the curve. So whatever has happened over last couple of years, in terms of all the virtualizing their packet core, virtualizing their the Volte platforms and all that, lots have been done. So the basic architecture has moved towards cloud, and I think on the core side, I would say we are very well positioned. Now there would be a couple of questions which are a couple of transformation which will happen going forward. That one of the question which comes up, whether the private cloud or public cloud, whether again the CSPs really think of opening their cloud interface for the application developers to develop on their cloud or on the public cloud. So a little bit of I would say again transformation which is yet to come, but for core virtualization perspective, I would say the foundation is strong. Now, coming to the radio virtualization, there I think globally everyone is debating about it, evaluating it, and that same situation for India. That when do we move to Cloud RAN, whether we move, don't move. I think those questions are still being debated, and let's see how that goes through over next couple of years. But as I said, for having the cloud in the network, having the cloud for the core, I think people have gone in a good way over last couple of years.
Oh, fantastic. So good to hear that. It will be quite relieving for people to actually understand that there's a lot more. We generally tend to feel that we are back from the Western countries, but it's great to hear that in some of these areas we're really, top notch and right up there in terms of what the Western counterparts are doing. So, while you already touched upon this topic, I just want to draw once again your attention on what you mentioned about the partnerships and also on the alliances. As we see, while telcos and CSPs are also, the lines are blurring between a telco and a techco. Where do you see this role of alliances and partnership in the overall growth strategy? Because what's going to happen is none of them can all do by themselves, right? We had one series or one, let's say, generation of outsourcing where we said, this is not core to what we can do, and therefore give it out to the specialists. And again, we're going to see as the entire ecosystem is changing and moving towards virtualization, there will be a further need for alliances and partnerships, as you had alluded to in the earlier discussion. But anything that you see which is really going to be extremely important in your overall growth strategy as well?
Yeah, so maybe I'll keep it little specific on this. In a generic term, I did cover that, but and you're right that yeah, some of these large web scaler which are coming to the picture, and again from the virtualization perspective, they have their own value proposition, and again Nokia with all our offerings on the cloud side, on the core side, we have been engaging with all the web scalers also like Google's and Amazon and Microsoft. And yeah, so they definitely have a different, much and innovative value proposition in terms of automation, in terms of time to market, and much more agility and flexibility. And so I think whatever you said about managed services, I think it was more of, yes, it was partnership, but it was to some extent subcontracting also. That some of the work which is not core to us, let's subcontract it to somebody else. However, the new wave which is coming up now, and what a term which you have come out with, TechCo, I think there it is much more collaboration which is required between the CSPs and these web scalers. And because it's not going to be that once you subcontract and then that particular activity or service runs for 6 months and only then maybe after 6 months or 1 year you come back with a change. It is going to be a continuous cycle. So much more collaboration and partnership approach, which would be again required between CSPs and the web scalers, the techcos, to again come out with a strong value proposition. And as I said, that for enterprise market, one solution will not fit every need. So you will have to have a little bit of a different approach, and that's where this collaboration would be required to address that market segment.
Sanjay, thank you. I think that's a. Sorry, you want to add anything? I thought that you
No,
might have finished.
I don't know. Maybe again, I gave the answer, which is maybe a couple of years hence. But I think that's my again personal opinion, which is coming in more than any organization kind of positioning.
No, I think it's food for thought, and it's really in the direction that at least I'm also seeing that there's so much, and that's why we call it an ecosystem, right? It's not going to be anyone working in independently. They have to be all interconnected. We are talking about an interconnected world. How can the people enabling that not be interconnected within themselves through either alliances or partnerships? So, I know we are really short on time. Probably we've overshot it, but your answers are always so engaging. It encourages the person asking the questions to keep on asking you for more. I'll ask one last question, which is a little different now from we've quizzed you enough on technology, how the ecosystem is going to work. This really is on sustainability, Sanjay. And, with the recently convened summit, the COP26 summit, where environment and sustainability and governance have really taken center stage for almost all boardroom strategies. We have heard capital is now being reprioritized to entities and to sectors where ESG is being adopted far better. In those terms, Nokia obviously is looks at it from that as well. Where do you see that? What are the key Nokia imperatives to collectively draw a net zero roadmap for the sector? Because that's something that's going to be interesting to see from a sustainability perspective.
Yeah, I think again, very critical topic, and incidentally, our president and CEO, Pekka Lundmark, he was also part of the COP26 summit, along with all the other leaders. And this is one topic which is very, very close to his heart. In fact, and that's where he says that, and maybe I will have to read it, there is no green without digitalization. So the more you digitalize, more you go green. And frankly speaking, at this moment, again, as per one statistics, only 30% of the world economy is digitalized. So there is 70% which is still left, and that's where people like you, people like us, have to play that role to quickly cover that 70%. From Nokia perspective, again, Pekka has really drove the whole company to take initiatives at whatever small level, big level, and try to do our best to contribute to it. So, for example, I will give you a couple of examples. So we have said that emission out of all our equipment will go down by 50%. So that's how we want to make or deliver our equipment to be much more energy efficient. We are saying that 100% of the power which we buy, the energy which we buy, should be coming out of out of the renewable energy suppliers in next few years. And similarly, at kind of a working level, like at India level, we are looking at how do we incentivize our employees buying electric vehicle and rather than the regular vehicle. So these are the initiatives which the whole company is looking at, and I'm sure with Pekka's vision, we would be able to. Nokia would be a big contributor towards this objective.
Oh, fantastic, Sanjay. It's really what I call walk the talk, right? It's not only what you're doing for the outside world, it's how you're also looking inwards and saying that even employees should be incentivized for buying electric vehicles. That's a great one. That's a very innovative thing, and I think I wish you and Nokia all the best. We continue to look at the leadership that Nokia provides for the various aspects, and I'm sure 5G is going to be a great arena for Nokia to really brainstorm that. And we look towards your sponsorship. So thank you again so much for the time and your insights. I think there's some great points that are coming out that you mentioned. I'll just summarize a couple of them. Like you said, 65% of our population in India is still outside the urban area, and therefore getting inclusion in the real terms is going to be key. We just can't take technology away from telecom, but this technology is coming at a cost, and you are doing your bit to actually make sure that that's delivered within the cost that can be managed. Partnership is going to be extremely important across the ecosystem, and each of the elements have to do various bits. And sustainability and environment cost for or concern for the environment is something that Nokia is really triumphing as one of its key areas of development. They continue to do that, and there are some very innovative policies that they are looking at following. So again, Sanjay, thank you so much. It's been great to hear your insights, and we look forward to your continued discussions and your insights. And thank you to Nokia for leading some of these innovations around the world.
Thank you very much, Shobhit. Thank you. It's always great to engage with you, and wish you good luck.
Same to you. Thank you, Sanjay. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to this conclusion of this fireside chat. I know it's been a brief session, but we've learned a lot of aspects where Nokia is actually leading from the front, picking up what is really key, both in terms of development within the sector and technology, as well as sustainability. So, we look forward to your participation in engaging in the IMC. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjay and Mr. Shobhit. And this concludes our CEO Conclave for the day. Enjoy the rest of the day and please take care of yourself. Thank you.